Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. If you have not met me yet, my name is Heather and we're going to do a pantry tour today. Now I'm going to tell you that I know this is going to be different than pantry tours that you've seen before, mostly because I'm not a super organized person, so things are a little bit haphazard. They are definitely dusty, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be just as surprised as you are about some of the things that are on the shelf, because probably I have lost track of some of these things. So just a little bit of a backstory. We have been growing a lot of our own food since about mid-2019. It obviously started out slower, and we have gotten to the point where some things we can actually put away for quite a long time. For example, I've got a lot of tomato products that I put up last year that genuinely could take us through this year while I still have tomatoes outside that I am growing. One of my main goals is to have at least one farm-raised thing with every meal, and we're getting better at using 2 farm things with every meal in the very least. So breakfast, it might just mean that we have, raw milk in our cereal. That might be our one farm thing. That works for me. But a lot of times, like this morning, we had our eggs, we had our sausage from our pigs, and hot sauce that I made, stuff like that. So let's go over what's over here first. I've got a lot of canned things, and then I do have a lot of dry, like freeze-dried things as well in several different places. This is not the only area that we have stored food. Also, it is the time of year where we are a little bit lean on some things. For example, I like to have canned beans on hand as far as like green beans, but I don't have any of those. This is somewhat organized, meaning I know that I have like hot sauces and jellies and things up here, and I don't have any of that down here, but it's not super organized. One thing we have a lot of that you are going to see is elderberry juice. I got a steam juicer last year and found that that was incredibly easy to use to put up tons of juice. We can mix this with honey to make elderberry syrup if and when we need, but for now the juice is up here, and I have acidified that. These are just some freeze-dried eggs that we don't need to use right now because our chickens are laying decently well. Got some flaxseed, and this is a secret weapon for getting your kids to eat their vegetables. This is freeze-dried shredded squash, and it works really well to hide in rice. As you can see, we've got some cobwebs. It's just real life, guys. These are some of my most favorite peppers to grow. These are habanadas, and these are freeze-dried. These are good as snacks, and I have been saving them. Moving to the next shelf, we do have some more elderberry juice. This actually might be, yeah, that's still from last year. I had a real fun time steam juicing. So I genuinely might not need to do any of that this year since I've got so much. Behind these beans is even more of that elderberry juice. A little goes a really long way with this stuff. As you can see, we have some dried beans, which is one of the reasons that I'm not growing any kind of dried bean like this year. I actually have a lot of dried beans in different spots. These are a couple different types in here. These are all versions of cowpeas in here. And I also have like lima beans, and then see there's way more cowpeas back there. So this is the reason you don't see me growing any like dried beans this year. Back up here, we have a lot of jalapenos. We've got pickled jalapenos. I might have some cowboy candy up here. It's another reason you're not seeing me growing jalapenos this year, is because I have a lot of different jalapeno things already. Oh, see, that's not good. We had a seal that popped, but this is hot sauce. Another thing that I have a lot of up here is grape jelly from last year. Again, I loved my steam canner, and I got to making tons of jelly. This is muscadine grapes. Here's another hot sauce version that we have. I called it the umami hot sauce. This is using the tater peppers that we grew last year. Wonderful flavor. If you've ever made jalapeno cowboy candy before, you know that the recipe gives you a lot more syrup than you need, and you can can that excess syrup and use it later. So that's what this is. More pickled jalapenos. This is pickled with some garlic that we grew. I made this blackberry and jalapeno jam last year. I should have put more jalapenos in it because you can barely taste them, but this is very interesting. Got lots more hot sauce. This was pepper jelly that was given to us. Someone bought this at an Amish farm stand. Yeah, and then back here we're starting to get into the cowboy candy that I have stored up here. I made a lot of cowboy candy that year, and my husband doesn't really go through it as much as I thought he would. Yeah, that's from 2022. And then this is just more elderberry syrup, actually from several years ago. Oh, looky there, we have a Tatler lid. These are likely from 2021 or so. This is a pepper jelly. You can barely see, but I've written hot on it. Down here we have the dried beans, like we talked about. I'll get some of them out of the way so we can see what's behind them. I might let that live up there. That's where the rest of these are. We'll visit that later. This may be the last jar of salsa verde that I have. And I also have some canned kale from 2024. Must have been a good kale year. Okay, and beside the dry beans, I have some French onion soup that I canned up last year. These are onions that we grew, and bone broth from our animals. And then I'm pretty sure from here on is all mushrooms. Different types of mushrooms in different sized jars. I really like canned mushrooms. They're pretty versatile. These are pickled mushrooms, which are very interesting. Did that last year. And I also have some mushroom stock stored back here. This is really great to cook rice with, and there's still a few mushrooms in here. Down here we have a lot of, oh, that's cowboy candy syrup. Down here we have a lot of elderflower cordial. I made tons of this last year. It's basically an elderflower juice concentrate. It's highly concentrated. When I reconstitute this, I will put about this much elderflower cordial in the bottom of the jar and then fill the rest with water, and it's beautiful. So because I use so little of it, I don't drink it every day, you can see that I have plenty of stock. This was actually my first year canning up any asparagus, so that's what this is. More elderflower cordial behind that, and then this is just syrup that we borrowed from the top shelf. But this is all canned rabbit over here. I did have a little bit of canned goat and pork, but we've gone through that. And you can see the lovely gelatinous broth that's inside that jar. We don't can any of our meats with liquid. This is just liquid that comes out of the meat during the canning process. Down here are my salsas. This looks like a relish. Yeah. But behind it is all roasted salsa. You can see I've got a ton of that. I think that, yeah, I still do only have the one salsa verde. I'll stick that down here with the rest of the salsas. And then this is all the canned pumpkin that we have left from the Dutch fork pie pumpkins that we grew. It's interesting, you can see kind of the different colors from the different pumpkins. This was a pumpkin pie filling that I canned a little while ago. It has all the fixins like the cinnamon and stuff in it. I told you it was dusty, guys. This here is actually canned lima beans. I cooked these in the can. Canning dry beans is really fun. If you've not done it before, you should try it. But here we have, these are like black eyed peas. Those are lima beans. Just have other versions of beans down here. I've got one more can of coleslaw left, but I do have cabbages that are being harvested out of the greenhouse, so I'll be making more of this soon. This is really great to have during the summer. But yeah, lots of cowpeas already canned up. There's a few different tomato products on this shelf. Barbecue sauce, which I don't really like this barbecue sauce. It's a little bit bitter. What I tend to do with it is mix it with tomato sauce to help my tomato sauce stretch, because it does add, you know, volume. Some canned cherry tomatoes from last year. I like to add these to the tomato sauces as well. It adds a little bit of texture. I think I've just got 2 more of those cans left. On the other side of the beans, I have what's left of the caramelized onions that I canned up. I did also freeze dry a lot of these. And then there's more barbecue sauce in the quart jars over there. A second to the last shelf on this bookshelf here is all broth for the most part. You can see I've reused some jars from different things that we've purchased. A lot of the Amish around us use Arkansas Glass Company jars, which are great for canning. Various broth over here, bone broth from our animals. A couple of empty jars, which will need cleaning before I reuse them. And then over here, it's kind of a graveyard of things that I haven't touched in a very, very long time. These are turnips. I don't even know from what year, but they're bitter and I don't like them. This is a very nice jar. I will probably feed this to the pigs and reuse this jar, I don't know, at some point. I've been looking at it thinking I need to do it for probably 3 years. Hot pepper pickles. Honestly, not our favorites. We don't reach for them, obviously. So we may need to feed these to the chickens and reclaim those jars. You might notice that as kind of a theme for me. There might be something on the shelf that I've just left there. And if I've left it there long enough, it's probably a sign for me to just reclaim the jars. And if you're worried about the chickens, chickens cannot taste capsaicin. They can't taste the spicy. So I just need to do a little bit of research to make sure that the vinegar is okay for them to consume. Whenever I show all the canned food that's on top of our cabinets here, people tend to worry. Now, my husband does home remodel for a living, and he has fortified these shelves into the studs behind the wall. So it looks like there might be a lot of downward pressure on the cabinets. It's actually not. It's supported by the studs. Up here is going to be much more dusty than it was down there because I come up here a lot less often. These are parsnips that I canned, I think, 2 years ago when I burned my arm harvesting the parsnips. So I will use these pretty soon. Jarred tomato sauce that needs to come up here and live with the others. There's a lot up here from last year. There was a time when I had a bad tomato year. I can't remember which year it was, but during that year I learned how to use pesto. I learned how to make things like Alfredo sauce and different ways to dress up pasta, and so I used a lot less tomato sauce, and I've kind of kept a lot of those recipes in my rotation, so I'm still using a lot less tomato sauce, which is why I have so much up here. A lot of these shelves become a place to store empty jars because I don't have a lot of empty jar storage. This works fine. Things do get dusty, they do need cleaning before I reuse them, but it works for now. It's kind of dark up here, but we do have some more bone broth and some more canned meat. This is more rabbit. We're starting to go through the very last of our canned blackberry pie filling. We use these in dump cakes. Some more relish. This is actually from green tomatoes. We have a whole bunch of pickled onions. I grew so many onions last year and canned up a bunch of the red onions as pickled onions. It's an amazing condiment. And as you can see, I am not hurting for that. Over here is an example of things that I have canned and haven't used and need to just reclaim the jars. These are pickles, but I used Armenian white cucumbers, which do not can up well, and these are mushy. This is also some pickled okra. I don't prefer it, so that's why it's sitting up here still. We have some more relish. And yeah, more pickles using cucumbers that I didn't like. So I need to reclaim some jars. The cucumbers that we're growing this year are gherkins, and gherkins make the best canned pickles in my opinion, especially when you pick them smaller. They retain that crisp a lot better. I canned a lot of pickles that I don't like. Really, my favorite pickles are fermented, which we don't can the fermented pickles at all. Those go in the fridge. Over here we have more of that green tomato relish. I made a ton of this at the end of season last year, and this is very good. But again, it's one of those things where you just don't use a lot of it all the time, so when I make it, it lasts a really long time. This is my attempt at making dandelion jelly. As you can see, it didn't set. It's just been sitting up here. And this is another thing that I need to toss and reclaim. Can you see it's kind of discolored? This isn't always a bad sign with your canning, but this was a Rebel canning recipe of like a pepper mustard. I don't think I'm actually comfortable consuming it, so we'll get rid of that. You can see we have this shelf over here. This is to store our squash. And you can see we are out of squash right now, but I do have a couple bags of green beans that I freeze dried. We've got some bruschetta tomatoes, and I think that top box right there is hot sauce. I can't physically get those down myself, so we're not gonna open those boxes, but we'll go out to the shed and look at the other food storage. I do have food storage for store-bought things in my house right here. This is our like dry goods pantry. It's not very organized, but you know, I know where things are. We do have some dried oregano that I just freeze dried and took out of the freeze dryer. There's some freeze dried jalapenos that we grew. And then I do have things like freeze dried dill, which this doesn't have very much flavor. So I probably just need to reclaim this jar as well. Here's our overflow shed where we have a lot of food storage as well. Most of it is over here on that shelf and in this cabinet, but you can see that I have utilized the countertop as well. We've got some gorgeous dried calendula flowers. These are just pretty to look at, but obviously medicinal as well. Currently drying some rose petals out here. We have some lavender petals. Lots of dried mushrooms. These are all freeze-dried. Lots of freeze-dried goat organs. We could consume these ourselves or use them as dog treats. This is mostly kidneys, heart, and liver. More mushrooms. These are relishes and lion's mane. I actually intended to blitz these up and put them in honey. I still will probably do that. These are more organ meats. These are actually from rabbits. I just freeze-dried some spearmint. It didn't turn out very good. And then this is a ton of stevia. I grew so much stevia last year, and if you know anything about stevia, a little bit goes a long way. So this is the reason you don't see me growing stevia again this year. And right here are some cajeta cubes. This is goat's milk caramel that I freeze-dried. It's really great in coffee. I've been told it looks kind of like honeycomb candy, which I've never eaten, but I can agree, I did look it up. Over here I have some freeze-dried milk from last year. And some teas. We've got rose. This here is lemon balm and then peppermint. It has actually been a while since I looked at what was over here and in here. You can see it's not super well organized, but we do have some freeze-dried things up here. There's more milk. These are freeze-dried eggs. But let's look at this shelf so I can remember what I have over here. Oh, look, I did have more oregano. Huh. And green peppers. More green peppers. We had an amazing pepper year a few years ago. These are pears and peaches. Ooh, I forgot I had these. These are kefir cubes, and kefir is basically like a drinkable yogurt. It looks like I probably used some peaches in this, and these are actually a really great snack. Some of this I need to set aside and bring inside because my kids will absolutely devour those. More green peppers, my goodness. I need to bring another one of these inside. These are half-gallon jars full of freeze-dried cherry tomatoes that have salt on them. They're really nice snacks. This is a squash that I put basically cheese powder on for homemade Cheetos. The kids don't really like them, but they're pretty good. I like them. I'll probably eat them. And then freeze-dried okra. Here we go. I've got some caramelized onions that I freeze-dried and stuck in here. More green peppers. Put all the green peppers together. Here. Woo! Avalanche. Okay, what's in here is a lot of freeze-dried eggs. And these are actually quail eggs that I freeze-dried in little cubes. See them there? They don't necessarily rehydrate well. Eggs rehydrate a lot better when they're already like scrambled up. These are raw, but they're scrambled. If you've ever frozen whole eggs before without breaking the yolk, you understand how they thaw out. Anything freeze-dried, when you rehydrate it, it turns into its previously frozen state. So anything that would have gotten mushy when it's thawed out from being frozen, it's gonna be mushy when it's rehydrated after it's been freeze-dried. And frozen yolks don't ever become normal again. It's just a lot better to scramble them up. So this is probably something else I just need to reclaim. What you're seeing is a lot of my learning process that is still sitting on the shelf in some cases. More summer squash. Anything that's in a Mylar bag like this can last up to 25 years. Got some tomato sauce. More green peppers. My gosh. And more peppers. I don't think I'm going to be able to reach up there, but I can read from here that it's a bunch of tomatoes that are all stored up there. And I know that there's also tomatoes in here. See, these are just basically quartered and freeze-dried. Tromboncino squash. It's a lot like butternut. Oh my goodness, we're gonna be haunted with all these green peppers. Wow. Oh, more peaches. For the most part, what I'm seeing up here is a lot more peaches, a lot more caramelized onions, a lot more tomatoes, a lot more tromboncino. Yeah, these are pears. I need to go through these way more than we have. I just tend to use fresh when we have it and save this kind of thing for when we don't have fresh. But we do not have fresh tomatoes right now. Still, I feel like we should have gone through these a lot faster. More onions. Yeah, I think what we're gonna get in here is more of the same, but there are different things over here. Some of these are some tinctures that I've made. This is a goldenrod tincture for allergies, and this is echinacea that I actually never strained, but it's still fine in there. These are jalapeno peppers. I tend to pull these for cooking rather than those green peppers that I have, which is probably why I still have a ton of them. I've got more milk, some bee balm and lemon balm, and then I do have some Dutch fork pie pumpkin puree that I freeze-dried recently. Looks like some jalapeno rings, some green tromboncino squash, which is just like summer squash. Caramelized onions, more cauliflower greens. We like to put these in any number of dishes to help green it up. Regular diced onions, so those are not caramelized. And that's probably what is all back here. It's just more diced onions. Oh my goodness. We had bought a lot of turkey scrapple from the Amish one year, and I had it in my freezer, and this is a way for me to just clean out my freezers. It's basically like a turkey meatloaf. Dragon dung beans, these are bush beans. Ooh, chia pudding bars. Totally forgot I had that. Basically, I made chia pudding and freeze-dried it and intended to use these for breakfast. And if I remember right, the kids were just kind of like, meh about them. And usually, like, I'll eat stuff knowing that it's good for me and that I preserved it and I don't want to waste it. But it's hard for me sometimes to pull out a whole bag of something knowing that I'm going to be the only one eating it. I'm going to try that again, though. Their taste buds may have changed. Yeah, that is what's back here. I did forget that that was there. And these, I don't think I realized I had some of those. Ew, I've got more of them. Some more scrapple, and then it looks like a ton of squash. Some tromboncino and some more of that shredded summer squash. I have a lot of this because we grew a lot of it. Look at that. As far as our food storage and pantry goes, I think that about sums it up. I mean, I've got a little bit of freeze-dried egg up here. There's some freeze-dried candy. Oh, I guess we could go look at the freezer because I do have a lot of stuff, especially meat in the freezer, and I don't organize that either, so sorry. It's probably a very frustrating video for a lot of you. My apologies. But we found quite a few things to bring inside, so that's good. I do have several freezers and refrigerators. Since we have a lot of dairy goats and a lot of dairy, I do need a lot of fridge space, and the fridges come with that freezer compartment on top. So I have 3 of those fridge freezer combos, one in our house, one on our front porch, and then there's one in this shed right here. There's not a whole ton up top over here. I was actually just in here yesterday. See, there's more of that turkey scrapple. But yeah, these are just bones that need to be bone broth, rabbit pelts that need processing. This here is a goat liver and some carrot top pesto, some pumpkin. This is chev cheese. We use that like cream cheese. And this is our main meat freezer, which doesn't have a whole lot. We had a couple pigs processed last year, and most of them is still right here. I do have a lot of lard, which is falling down this shelf. Decided it was going to collapse on us. Yes, we have some more bones, lots of lard, lots of rabbit, and what you see in those packets back there, that's actually chicken that I bought. But as far as our pigs goes, there's really not a lot left. There's a lot of this breakfast sausage and quite a bit of bacon, I thought. But there's a ton of rabbit hides. These are persimmon jam or persimmon preserves. Basically, it's persimmon puree. When this does pull out, there's a lot of ground pork back there. This is ground goat and venison. And in the door, we have things like chev of different varieties and types. This is more pesto. I do have a lot of tomato confit, which is like a roasted tomato and garlic in olive oil. That's very good to add to the tomato sauce. More lard, lots more tallow. And most of our goat meat is actually stored in a freezer on the front porch, and I do have a big chest freezer inside my house that has a lot more of the rabbit. So there's the pantry tour. I hope you enjoyed it and it wasn't too anxiety inducing with my lack of dusting and organization, but you know, it is what it is. And I actually do pull from my pantry quite often. I know it doesn't look like it, but we are combining what's on our pantry with everything that we can grow fresh, which is a lot of things. We grow in southwestern Kentucky, zone 7A, and I do have a big greenhouse that I can utilize year round. And so there's always a lot of fresh coming in, and like mentioned, I usually will use fresh before I pull from the pantry. So some of the stuff on the pantry is quite old, and that's just because I haven't run out of the fresh things in order to have the need to use what I have preserved. Anyway, let me know if you would like to see our grocery run of things that we buy that we don't grow here. I have done a couple grocery runs in the past. I'll go ahead and link those in the description box below, but if you'd like an updated grocery run, let me know.